relax, I'm sure, especially for you not having to.
Yeah, quite honestly, CT, I haven't been doing any traveling. Well, we can talk about that later, but
I think we talked about that at the pick. You were saying you weren't traveling much.
Yeah. So, but that's okay.
But still, in general life, even not business, it's good to not have to run everywhere and just kind of chill at home.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're always on the go so much. My kids have all been so involved in sports that all the way up till just recently, holy cow, it was like every weekend, 24/7, 12 months of the year. And now the two oldest ones are on to their careers, and my youngest son, he plays basketball, but that season hasn't really started yet. So it's kind of nice that we get to not have such busy but still busy lifestyles, that we can slow down and relax.
Yeah, I agree.
Drink a little bourbon, have a good time.
Tell you what, last 3 days here have been gorgeous. It's been in the 60s at night, or low 60s, up to 50s. So it's cool in the morning. Go out, sit by my pool at the gazebo bar and drink coffee with Susan. And then, we usually been doing some hiking. We always eat good, so what the heck? But then getting to enjoy the pool and just some beautiful days. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, it's the temperature's been amazing. It's just not been so stinking hot that you can't enjoy it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the one distillery here near me, Indian Creek, they had a event not this past weekend, the weekend before. And they have these bands come, and they have a nice outdoor gazebo area that they set up. And that was awesome, because that was right at the time when the weather was starting to get good, last Saturday night, I guess it was. And it was just, you just sat there and you're in the woods and listening to music, drinking bourbon, and, it just didn't get any better. It was great.
It is great. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. That's good.
So my son that we went and saw up in Michigan, he and his wife just purchased a house, but they don't have all the air conditioning set up yet. Okay. So when you think about that, so we rented a motel that was pretty nice, that had air conditioning, because we really didn't feel like being up there Friday, Saturday, Sunday in 80, 90 degrees and just, I was helping them with stuff around the house, and we were there. And we get up there on that Friday night, and I think the temperature was 59 degrees that night. So
they don't need air conditioning up there, Jeff. I think the cars they sell don't even have air conditioning, do they?
And it had been hot leading up, but I mean, even his birthday on Sunday afternoon, the sun was hot, but it was only 72 degrees. I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful day, and just a great weekend, like you said. And we talked about that a little bit right before. All right, so we're getting ready. We'll just pregame this a little bit. I just wanted to throw out to our sponsors, the Spirit of French Lick and Rosewood Bourbon, plus Alan Bishop, One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. And he has a brand new season of If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. That's, you guys check out those, all those sponsor type stuff, and we're going to get ready to go. So, the drill. We're going to have a 30-second spot, and then you'll hear the music, and we'll just start the podcast. And tonight we're going to be talking a lot of specifics and what's coming up, between what's happening at Kentucky Bourbon Festival and one of your new releases that you're going to be having coming up soon. I thank you. If you guys check Facebook and the post I did earlier, you can see what that new release is, but I'm going to get this thing started. All right, here we go.
Take a bird and sitting on the stars. We get a little wild in the shore of the bars. We love what we do, we're drinking every girl in the room. And it's awesome, but we're telling the truth. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Lazy in hell and making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We're here to have fun and we hope you enjoy. We're here to have fun.
That one. The music.
All right. Welcome back to another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Tiny here. CT's in the house, and we have a very special guest, Gregg Snyder. I tried to combine your name with guest and Greg at once, but Gregg Snyder is the master distiller of chicken cock whiskey. Welcome, everybody.
What's up,
Thanks,
everybody?
It's
How's
great
everybody doing?
Yeah, it's great to have you here, Greg. I'm going to cover just real quick that this is your 10th official appearance as a podcaster here. You are the number one guest now of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. That is a record. I know that
That's an honor. Hey, that's
Alan
an honor.
Bishop was at 9, and Randy, the president who did the last podcast, he's at 8, but still, I think you got it in the fact that you've been with us consistently. I think you and Alan started coming on at about the same time, but Alan has switched, over to a new distillery. So he's in the process of setting a lot of stuff up and making whiskey. So there's not a lot to, there's not a huge amount to talk about at this point unless I get down there. So, you've got that.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Greg's been on more than I have.
I don't think CTI. No, that's not true at all. I mean, you've come. Yeah, Gregg has been official Scotchy Bourbon Boy for a long time, but as far as promoting and helping us out and everything, we've always appreciated everything, and all your knowledge. I mean, I would say between you, Alan, and just the knowledge that you guys have of distilling, you're on a big, you've distilled on a large column still for most of your adult life, starting when you were a kid and going all the way through. And he's been on a pot still. So between the two of you and what I've learned, all the different, there's so many different, techniques or different ways to adjust the taste of the bourbon to come out the way that you want it to. It has the most rules of any whiskey, right? But at the same time, there are so many adaptations of those rules, right?
Right. That's very much so.
I mean, yes. And so the flavor, that we've been getting and everything, I'm excited to have you on tonight because we've got Kentucky Bourbon Festival coming up and you're going to be there. Now, on our bus tour, I found out today, I'm just going to ask you to put a little bit of, something for the tour when we go to Bardstown this time. They've got us on a thieving tour. So, maybe put in a good word to send Nick or Steve down, or even one of the distillers or somebody else, to say hi to us for you.
We can talk offline on that, but yeah, I'd love to. I apologize first off that I'm not going to be there with you. This would have been what, the fourth year in a row.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have been able to give you a tour, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be in New Hampshire the day you guys are coming by there. So, but let me know. We'll chat and we'll see if we can line something up to let you taste a little something special.
That would be great.
Nice. No, I was going to say, Greg, I think that the experiences there with you have been amazing, because just like going to the library the few years ago when we started there in the library and tasted through some of your stuff from I think 6 months on up, and that was a really special experience, because still I've only been in that library one other time, and I've been to Bardstown multiple times, but that was something that'll always resonate with me as one of those key moments.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, you know.
So now you've got that. Plus, I just wanted to, like, people don't understand that whiskey truly is, in my opinion, very similar to wine. They don't understand when it comes to whiskey. You know, people understand wine because it could be a good year for the grapes, the soil, the acidity, where the grape is grown, and everything. When it comes to making good whiskey, you've got to have, there's better years. People don't really get that corn grows better some years than others, and in different regions better than others. Like, I know that when we were up in Michigan, just this past, Michigan wasn't having a great corn year. Some, you could see that the stalks had a little yellow green, maybe some flooding mixed with too much whatever. But, you know, then when we were back into Ohio, you can see certain areas that are, you know, and so people don't actually, I understand it's not like a grape. I mean, but still the type of corn, you know, you can, it can be genetically, naturally genetically modified to be you know, different strains. And there's so many different things to choose from, but also it just does come down to not only all the ingredients and how well they grew, and, you know, the yeast strain you use, but then once it's in the barrel, if it's cold or hot over the summers, that can affect the whiskey and those batches. You know, we've been really lucky, in my opinion, since, especially for the last 6-7 years, I think it's optimal aging for bourbon, and the flavors that are coming out of just Buffalo Trace's small batch. I could take a 2019 small batch and put it up against today's small batch, and today's small batch has way more caramel flavor. And so people don't quite understand that year to year, the whiskey can fluctuate better. Now, I think most distilleries want to have that, what would you, not a low standard, but medium standard. They always wanted to match, right? But then there was, you know, what you experienced, things like what happened to Knob Creek, where they had to take the age statement off because they couldn't meet demand, so they were using younger whiskey, correct? Now the age statement's back on because they made whatever, you know, all those different things. But all I've noticed is that the whiskey seems, general small batch whiskey seems to be better tasting in the last couple years than it had before. Now, I'm not sure if it's my palate or whatnot, but I also think it has to do with how well the whiskey's aging, and those barrels that, you know, get put down from brand to brand to brand, you know, and the younger that they get, if you have really good aging, even those barrels are good, right? You know, for how the heat's hitting it and everything, right? That makes a big difference, correct?
Absolutely. And you know, you touched on it, Jeff, but there's so many variables that impact. Now, you start with the grains. I've always said, you know, I'm a big proponent in the importance of the wood and the barrel. But as I've always said, if that whiskey's not good going in that barrel, it's not going to be good coming out of that barrel. So the grains, you got to start with the grains. And it's a bit different, you know. Most vineyards, they've got what they got in the way of grapes. A lot of what the bigger wine companies will buy grapes from other vineyards and so forth. But and luckily we have options. You know, we have strict quality controls, quality specifications on the corn, the rye, the malted barley, or wheat if you're making wheated bourbon. And if it's not right, it gets rejected. Okay, and so I can remember years, you know, in the 46 years I've been in this business, when I worked at Wild Turkey. we'd be having loads of rye come in, and it just had a musty smell to it. We had to reject it. We ended up having to buy rye from Sweden to get a quality enough level of rye to really make the quality whiskey that we were, expected and wanted to make. So, it starts with the grain. And then from there, there's so many other variables as you mentioned, the last, gosh, I don't know how many,
Okay. Just said
I
hi.
also, but yeah, it's led up to this year even being warm temperatures in the spring and early summer. But definitely, you got to imagine that some of those barrels that are going to come out that have seen that extra heat, throughout the rest of their tenure are going to definitely have some different taste notes, maybe a little more oak or whatever.
The best example I can think of, I think it was 2022 when we actually, before we came out with the double oak, our chicken cock 8-year double oak, the full summer season that actually sat in new barrels in the warehouse top floor, we had 80 days where the temperatures exceeded 90 degrees Fahrenheit in Kentucky. And that's perfect. I mean, it's ideal for aging good whiskey, really extracting as much flavor as that barrel has to offer. So I think we were very fortunate in that regard, really enhance the whiskey and get it to where we wanted to in a great time frame that we needed to.
So that's nature cooperating with you.
I mean, nature, Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate, unfortunately. So, you do the best with what you got, but by the same token, we try not to compromise on that and bottle it and sell it when it's all right.
Yeah. So this is one. Okay. So initially, we the history of chicken cock, you've gone over a lot, and it's a brand that that your owner Monty was able to acquire, and you've been working hard to bring that brand back at a high quality level. So initially, you started off making whiskey, but there had to be time between when you made whiskey and when hits the shelf, and when there's so many things you can do as a brand in between that to make money, and that's one thing that I think. I wouldn't say you had now going into this to be able you knew what good whiskey tasted like, and you've tasted many barrels from different places. But is this experience that you've gone through as far as the different finishes, like the beer barrel finishes and the rum barrel finishes, and then also what you did with the double oak, and this is in most cases that was purchased whiskey that you were able to um, put together and then either finish it or put it into another barrel or put it in, you were making these decisions. Was that fairly new to you as far as something that or had you done something like that consistently? I mean, as far as what you can do?
Now, to a point, I mean, again, to give your viewers a little bit of history on that, I started consulting. I've been in this business over 46 years, and in 2017, I started my own consulting company, and I connected with Grain and Barrel Spirits, who owns Chicken Cock Whiskey. In 2017, I was helping them with some supply chain issues and some operational stuff. But one day, the founder came to me, Marty, who you mentioned earlier. Marty actually acquired this old whiskey brand in 2011. It was originated in 1856, and so in 2011, the brand actually in the 1950s it still had a fire, burnt to the ground, and so the brand sat idle for close to 60 years. Well, 2011, Marty was looking for a whiskey brand. He acquired the brand rights to it, and small company, he needed cash flow, so he was able to source young whiskey. He put it in an aluminum bottle. They flavored it, and it served its purpose. It created cash flow, but it didn't help the high quality reputation the brand was known for many years. And so shortly after I started helping through my consulting services, Marty came to me one day and he shared his vision of wanting to resurrect chicken cock back to Kentucky and bring it back to the high quality prominence the brand was known for. So he asked if I would help him do that and serve in the role of master distiller. Of course, I said I'd do that on one condition. We stopped buying that young crap whiskey, and everything we do was focused on bringing this brand back to its high quality prominence. So that's kind of what we did. Initially, he went to Paris, Kentucky, where the brand originated. He looked for the original mash bill, but unfortunately, I believe that the recipe burnt down with the distillery, and so we really didn't know. So what I tried to do was to emulate a mash bill that was indicative of that time period. A high rye mash bill, a bourbon, 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malt and barley. And so that's kind of the bourbon mash bill that we set our sights upon and been making ever since we hooked up with Bardstown Bourbon Company 2017. Now, to your point, when we started making whiskey, you got to give it time to age. It's not like vodka. You can't make it and bottle it the next day. You got to give it time. And so over the first 4 years after we started making whiskey, or during that time period, part of my job, I go out and try to find good quality whiskey that we could acquire and put aged whiskey and put it under the chicken cock label to really kind of establish a basis for some good quality whiskey that was going to lead into the product that we were making and maturing, down the road. And so what you're tasting now in the way of our bourbon, of our rye, is everything that I had responsibility for overseeing at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Right. And we've gotten that. Now, here's a question. You've made this fantastic whiskey. So earlier this year, me and CT we went down to your brand new tasting room. That would be called Circa 1856. I it's just 63, 56, 49. It's like a football game, but 1856. And we went in and we did a barrel pick for Kentucky Bourbon Festival with Lisa Roper Wicker, yourself, Steve Coombs, Stacy Pritchard, me, CT. It was, what would you say, a pretty good cast. And we got to pick.
A great group. It really was a great group. Yeah.
We got to pick from barrels, not the barrels that if people have listened before, Gregg basically did a barrel program through this. His first couple of years was buying barrels, but at one point he was able to work with the barrel company to make the barrels and pick the actual wood staves for each individual 600 barrels that he would have made for him. And he got the wood seasoned perfectly, and he made those barrels. But the barrels for was it 3 years? The first 3 years were, or was it 2?
Actually, the first 2 years, 2018, 2017, 18, 19 were other barrels. 2020 was when the first whiskey was laid down, where I actually had oversight of selecting the logs, overseeing the cutting of the staves and the heading, natural air drying those staves and heading, and going out about a week and a half before we made our whiskey to ensure those barrels were constructed properly in West Virginia. They were toasted properly to a medium plus toast, and then charred properly to number 3 level char. So yeah, as far as the full oversight from bark to barrel to bourbon to bottle, that actually started in 2020. Now, the 2 years before that, I had oversight. I went to the cooperage and actually got to oversee the barrel production as far as the toasting and the charring, but I didn't actually get to select the logs at that point.
I mean, all that was left for you is to actually chop down the actual trees.
You probably did.
I still got all my fingers, guys.
Yeah.
So I don't need to go there.
Yeah, but so this year, we were early when we did this pick. We're dealing with those ones that you picked, but it's the distillate that you did at Bardstown Bourbon Company, and we got to pick from 4 barrels. And all I got to say is it was so exciting and fantastic, those 4 barrels. It was the hardest barrel pick I've ever been on. I've been on some barrel picks where it's a couple, where you get 2 good barrels or out of 4, or there's, sometimes it's just 1, or sometimes is there that really good barrel? You have to work to see if there's a good barrel. But in this case, all 4 were spectacular. And it was trying to figure out which would be the best for the festival. And, we didn't go with the sweetest. I mean, there was a really caramely sweet one that was fantastic. CT was like, let's get that one ourselves, you know. But
I wanted to buy it for me.
yeah, exactly. Just like that's all the bourbon you'd have to buy the rest of your life.
Ah,
I don't know, 53 gallons, that takes you a long time to drink that.
a lot of sharing.
Yes. Anyways, so but we did the pick, and it's exciting to be able to taste the whiskey. Now, the one I picked up today, this particular bottle of chicken cock, I picked it up on my way home. This is the same stuff that you did. Now your blends for your batches of chicken cock whiskey are 30 barrels, correct? Is that what we talked?
It varies.
Okay.
A typical bourbon batch can be anywhere from 40 to maybe 80. Just depends on, you know, what the backlog is on orders and how much we need to bottle. Because, you know, it's not like we can pick and choose. We can't bottle every day. We have to give, you know, Bardstown Bourbon Company enough notice to get it on the schedule. And we try to make sure we've got enough to cover orders and have some in inventory to handle the flow.
So my opinion is there's a lot of stuff that goes on this, but from the initial chicken cock whiskey that you were putting in that bottle and making those batches initially to now that it's your distillate. I mean, everybody, as a distiller, you had to be somewhat nervous, correct? Because what you had the previous years that was going on the shelf for the last 3-4 years, that was just you as getting whiskey and making it taste. I mean, the flavor profile was determined by which the whiskey was purchased, although you were the one who was telling them where to get this specifically, correct?
Yeah,
For this.
on that realm, Jeff, you know, it's tough. As I tell people, that time period as master distiller, I looked at it as treasure hunting. I'd get out and I'd treasure hunt. And some days you find treasure, some days you don't. If that whiskey didn't meet our quality specifications, I'd reject it. I don't care what they were selling it for, what kind of great deal it was. If it didn't meet, and I rejected a lot of whiskey. And I'd taste whiskey. It had to be, for my palate, a quality whiskey. Now, was it going to be the same whiskey that people were going to taste 4, 5, 6 years down the road that I was responsible for producing? Probably not. But what you do is you segue into it. You get good quality whiskey, so you kind of get the name established and bridge the gap, and create a following until yours becomes available. Hopefully, it takes off at that point. I think we kind of achieve that schedule.
Yes. Now, here's a question, and I just because did you start to supplement at one point both whiskeys? Like, was there a time where it was made up of the stuff you distilled along with the stuff that you had purchased to kind of try and bridge the gap more towards what they were going to taste?
There was a very short time period there. We basically were using up what we had acquired, and we segued it as quick as it could into what we were using. So there was a time period, maybe it wasn't that many months, where we had a little bit left over from certain ages, and we segued into the stuff that I had produced. But yeah.
Hey,
So,
Greg, so like the bottle that was the old bottle was 90 proof. Did you keep the proof the same? Is everything kind of still in line with that?
That's
Just
correct.
the
Our
label's
flagship,
different?
when we established that, CT, you know, that's our flagship bourbon brand. Chicken Cock Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 90 proof. You know, it's in the old replica bottle, you know, that was pre-prohibition, prohibition era bottles, and so yeah, we 90 proof. Again, part of our objective was to bring this brand back to a high quality prominence. As I've told people time and time again, you know, if we let the financial folks of the company manage the business, every one of those bottles would be 80 proof, because you get a lot more bottles out of a barrel than 80 proof, and so you get more money per barrel. That was not the objective. Our objective was to bring it back to its high quality prominence. And our flagship bourbon and our flagship rye, to me, the sweet spot on those was 90 proof. You really allowed the flavors to come to the front and pop. So
It's, I mean, I even the original, I don't have the new one, but I enjoy sipping on it. I like it, you know, so I'm excited to get a new bottle. I think the new one has like a tan label. Is that right, Jeff? Zero.
Well,
That's a small batch.
that's a small batch right here.
No, is the new label different though?
No,
Yeah.
here is the new
Oh.
label. The new label is exactly the same, right there.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So how do you know which one you're getting?
As far as what year it was produced,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it's hard to. There's a laser coating on the bottle. It's hard to see. It's usually on the back of the bottle, right below or right underneath the back label, but it's laser coated, and that
Okay.
laser code will tell you what day it was bottled, and you can trace it all the way back to the barrels that were dumped in.
Huh. It must be
Well, it's
smaller
hard
than
to
my,
see. It is hard
my
to see.
eyeballs will allow me to see.
Every bottle that's on the bottling line have a laser, and actually laser etches into the. Some have inkjet, but I think the Bardstown have a laser jet.
Nice.
and the new ones have the California, the whatever CR, it has the recycling bottle code on, whereas the old ones don't. But I will tell you this. You did a pretty damn good job. Because I have the old and I have the new, and there's a base flavor that you were able to keep that I'm not going to say it, but I want to say it, but I'm not going to, because it's not a. But the main difference is the newest one is a lot more caramel and sweetness, but it still has that bourbon, the flavor of bourbon, where you pick up a little bit of nuttiness, but you pick up the little bit of whiskey, the flavor of actual bourbon. You know what I mean? When you like what you pick up in the Rick House, where this has a lot of caramel notes and some vanilla, and this one is a little bit more, what would you say, not as sweet. So the older one is definitely, it almost feels, I don't know, because this does not have any, you wouldn't say age is a difference. You know what I mean? But one feels more like there's a little bit more barrel influence, where the other one is picking up the fresh, newer whisk, the distillate aspect of it too. You know. So, what did you think between the two? Have you actually tasted both of them?
Me personally,
Yeah,
well, probably
side
not
by
side,
side.
but I've tasted all along. Yeah,
But I mean, are you like?
I think again what we're trying to achieve, and that's part of what I paid so much attention to detail with, and that was the barrel set. I thought that if you truly do all the things we did with selecting extremely tight grain oak, with letting the staves and heading natural air dry, and then to toast that barrel, a deep penetrating medium plus toast before you chart to only a number 3 level char, you can create as much flavor as that barrel has to offer. As I told people, I taste our whiskey every 6 months. You guys know this, and I truly believe, based on my palate, our 4-year-old is comparable to most 6-year-olds. I don't believe in accelerated maturation, but I believe when you can create so much flavor that barrel has to offer, you can extract it in comparable time. And so the caramel notes, the vanilla notes you're talking about, Jeff, the old black tones, I think they're more prominent in today's batches than they were 4 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
except
well, the complexity of those barrels that we tasted on the barrel pick were amazing. I mean, that was not an 8 and 10-year-old product.
And that's not even the grand finale that we're going to get to later this year and go into the ones where you made the barrels. I will say this, you're right. So in my opinion, this one has those flavors but the sweetness of the caramel and the aging process, whatever the barrels here are, you can tell you're picking up a lot of those caramels and vanillas, where the other stuff isn't. It's got some of those flavors, but they're a little bit more bitter, put it that way.
They're not as strong.
not as sweet. So, I mean, but you know, some people don't like a real sweet bourbon, but that isn't what this is. It's got the caramels and it's sweeter, but you still
They
have
drink
that
Scotch.
basic flavor, right? Wouldn't you say?
That's the beauty of it. I mean, everybody's palate's the same, and some people like wheated bourbon versus the rye bourbon, you know. But even with rye bourbons, you know, everybody's palate's different. So, you know, when we did the barrel pick, you know, how many differences? Because I thought all four were distinctly different, but they were amazing in their own right, in their own flavors. I thought they were amazing.
Right. And now, to revisit the question I asked you before. So, were you tasting the older batches while you were blending the newer batch, so that while you were adding in certain barrels and putting that in, that you were matching a little bit, trying to match the taste? So if you had a couple barrels that, if it was getting too sweet or whatever, and you had a couple barrels that were a little bit less, you were trying to get a little bit closer to what you had before. Is that what you were doing?
There was a little bit of blending segue into that, but again, we were very small inventory. Okay, so we're very limited. As we're running out of inventory, I didn't have a lot of leeway to play with different taste and segue into it. You know, so I tried to balance it and make a smooth segue into the flavor profile that we currently have.
So that's another aspect of a skill as a really good master blender who's been in the business for a long time. This isn't something that there's a lot of money involved with what you're doing. You know what I mean? If you F it up and you end up and you run out of the stuff that you were talking about, all of a sudden you have this batch and you weren't able to do what you're supposed to do, and then that has to go in the bottle, and then maybe people react to it negatively. That is where somebody like you, or somebody, you know, like, people don't quite understand how important the taste testers are at a distillery. The people tasting those whiskeys and those bourbons have to really know what they're doing, because there's a lot of different palates, but they're good whiskey going out for the palates. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it has to happen, because there's those high-end palates that are always tasting and whatever, that are going to either talk about it or whatever. And then there's an awful lot of people who don't know the difference. But overall, I found to produce good whiskey, you need people who know what they're doing to make it, but then you also have to have a team. You can have really good whiskey and a bad team and make some bad whiskey, even though the whiskey was good.
Well, in consumer perception can skew it as well. Just a quick story about that. When I was managing director of Wild Turkey, I started there in 1998, and they had just started a process to change all the packaging, the bottles, the labels, the closures, the boxes, everything. They were changing the entire package. And so we did the package change, same whiskey. It was for the Wild Turkey 101, it was 6.5-year-old whiskey. Bottle it in this new package, and you can't believe the number of complaints we got at bars and from you know, consumers saying, "Oh, what'd you do to the whiskey? You changed it." And no, we changed the bottle, the label, the closure, the box, everything except the whiskey. And it was crazy the number of complaints we got. So, you know, consumer perception can have a big role in that as well.
Well, yeah, people, I don't care what you say. When you're dealing with whiskey, even straightforward, you can't make there's the palates are so different, you can't make everybody happy. There's no doubt about it. But you can produce good whiskey, you put it out there. And the one thing that whiskey does do, if you produce good whiskey, it sells. That's the
In fact, too, you know, what we were talking about earlier, Connie, is that, you know, I was given the charge, the responsibility, the opportunity to say, hey, we want to resurrect this brand back to Kentucky and bring it back to its high quality product. And so that's what the focus was. You know, my palate is my palate. Some people might not agree with what I like. Okay, that's okay. But what I tried to do was come back with a high quality whiskey that was reminiscent of days gone by when the famous old brand was around and had a high quality reputation. So I think we've been fairly successful in resurrecting it back to Kentucky at Bardstown Bourbon Company, which is a great place, great crew, and they're making some fantastic whiskey. And so I'm proud of that aspect.
Well, you should be, because it's like the brand itself, when people in Ohio, it has some notoriety. People will recognize it. I have friends who swear they're like, I don't like any other rye, but I like that Island Rooster. And they'll call it out by the name. They'll say it's that chicken cock one that you had us drink. But I do think that the bottling is important. I mean, the way it looks, and you guys hit it, on the head. The bottles are amazing, and they don't do it any justice sitting here on our tables until you get one in your hands and you see the design of them. But the product is great, but where it's going, I think that's the thing people need to recognize, is that those barrels we just tasted are what's coming. And that is, man, it's going to be, if you're not paying attention to chicken cock and what's coming out in the next year or two, you're going to miss some really good stuff.
Thank you. I agree. But thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the one thing, there's a couple things like you've done. I just hope with this run that you're doing that I know that you probably could just put it all out as bourbon and sell it, but barrel strength, start getting some years where it's a 10-year or on this stuff is going to be insane. I mean, you're already.
Can you imagine that stuff we drank at 10 years? I mean, eight years. I mean, that's crazy.
The key for you now is just to basically be able to put enough back. I think that's a huge key that we would, or hide a few barrels, and then have the long lost, 15-year chicken cock show back up, at one point, but now, you've got a new product coming up, and initially, when we first started, we were talking about, you were saying, God willing, I'll be here for the launch of my stuff. And you are here, actually. So am I. I'm glad we're here. We've been through a lot for the last 5 years. There's no doubt about it. But the one thing that they've been doing is these higher end, really beautiful whiskeys. You've had the Chanticleer, the Red Stay, you've got the Cotton Club, but you've got a new one coming out, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So tell us about it, and then also, when is it coming out?
So the new product, our latest LTO, limited time offer, is going to be bottled probably in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And it's called Chicken Cock Mizunara Japanese Oak Finished. Now, don't know what consumers know about Mizunara oak. It's a very rare Japanese oak. Most of the trees are at least 200 years old before they can even be cut. Very slow growing, very tight grain, but it's a different chemical composition. Very unique, very spicy, very Asian spiciness, but it'll be in those Mizunara oak barrels 10 months, at least 10 months before it's actually bottled. Now, this is our 5-year-old bourbon. It went into those barrels back in early November? No, excuse me, on last October. And Mizunara oak can be pretty harsh. So I actually laid out the specifications for those barrels. Those barrels, it's going to be a high-end product. Those barrels alone, each barrel costs $5,000.
Now that's new?
Oh, yeah, brand new.
Okay.
So what we did is we bought the Japanese oak from a company, a broker in Japan. They shipped the staves and heading to a company in France. A cooperage in France made the barrels, and they shipped them to us to fill. $5,000 a barrel. To put that in perspective, most bourbon barrels nowadays are probably in the $240 to $300 range on the high end. $5,000 barrel. So we bought 10 of them. And so it kind of drives the cost of goods up, which drive the price up a little bit. But the flavors, and that's the thing you talked about earlier, Jeff. Today's consumers, they're always looking for something new, different innovations. So every year we try to come out with some new LTO, limited time offer. And so this year, that's something we decided, let's try this. It's something unique. And when I bought the barrels, I set the specification. Number one, we're putting some delicious 5-year-old bourbon in those barrels. So I don't want to char those barrels. I don't need to char those barrels. What charring does, it's like a charcoal filter.
Right.
It filters out the flavor that's in that whiskey or the distillate, and it starts picking up some of the flavors of the barrel. Well, initially, the extraction you get out of Mizunara oak can be pretty harsh. And so what I did is I didn't char those barrels. I just told them I want a medium plus toast. All I want to do is convert all the flavors in that wood. I don't want to char. When they showed up to the distillery back last September, October, I think it was actually September they arrived, I had them fill those up with water, reverse osmosis water, let them sit in those barrels a while, roll them around, and then actually dump that water out. I wanted to extract some of the initial harshness off the front end of the extractables coming out of that wood. Then we put our 5-year-old bourbon in, and I taste it every month. I get a sample from the distillery every month, and it's just progressed so nicely. It's got such a unique spiciness to it that's unlike anything you've ever tasted.
Well, the Japanese, don't they put theirs, they will let some of those rest 17 years?
That's a good point, CT. Most companies that finish their whiskeys in a Mizunara oak, they're Scotch companies. Now, most Scotch whiskey that sits on those, you're right, they're going to sit there 20 or years or longer, typically. Yeah. And so they want this. So because of that reason, it can be such a harshness that you extract that. So I was trying to do was kind of eliminate some of that harshness before we put our whiskey in there to kind of pull out the flavors that I wanted to extract out of the wood itself. And so it's going to be very unique. We're actually going to have a grand launch of the Chicken Cock Mizunara during the Bourbon Festival, Kentucky Bourbon Festival. On that Saturday, September 14th, from 6 to 8 o'clock. You mentioned our tasting room in downtown. If those people haven't been to Bardstown, it is right on the circle, right in the heart of town. We're kind of in the big yellow house, on the old house. It's a historical home on the southwest side of the circle. But it's called Circa 1856. It's our tasting room and visitor center type thing. But on Saturday, September 14th, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m., we're going to be doing our launch of the Mizunara oak. So people are invited to come over, join us, buy you a bottle if you want to buy. I'll be there to taste with you and sign a few bottles. And so it should be a fun evening.
Yeah. And what I like about this compared to a lot of what's been going on for the past 2 years in the bourbon world is this is a wood. It's not a wine finish. It's not some finish, which believe me, I like some maple finishes. I've got a barrel sitting there with some maple in it right now. But I like that stuff. But man, a wood finish, a chinquapin, whatever. It's kind of nice to see some different wood species coming instead of just finishes off of wine and etc.
But I agree. There's some unique oaks that contain tyloses, and you actually quarter saw it, make a barrel, and it won't leak. But there's some unique oaks. I mean, some of the Amburana stuff, we haven't done anything Amburana. That's something I'd love to do, is an Amburana finish. I mean, it's like a cinnamon bomb. The flavors that you extract out of the South American oak, the Amburana oak, is amazing as well.
So do you have plans for I know you have to have plans for the used barrels. I mean, once they're used, that's got to even be intriguing in itself.
Not sure. There's a lot of people involved in those decisions, Tiny, and the finance people get involved with that. The marketing folks get involved with that.
So they could recoup some of their losses by selling
some of the costs, or we could reuse them with some other type of finished whiskey and some other collaboration.
So my thing is Greg, is like, Madeira is such a strong wine, and when you put anything in it, it's very potent. And even after it's been drained for a while, it's still potent, and it can take. You can put a bourbon in it in 6 months, boom, and it's ready, and you can reuse it. Is this going to be similar to that? Do you think that the Mezzanara is capable of being rebarreled?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I think it's going to have enough. Only having our whiskey in only 10 months, it's going to have adequate flavor to really extract more flavor out of it. Whether we do that or we sell those barrels to some third party and they do it, but there's definitely some flavor left in those for sure.
Yeah, cool.
You know, you were talking about I mean, look back at our chicken cock Chanticleer. That was our bourbon that I finished in French cognac barrels. You talk about a potent,
Yeah.
libation. French cognac is so much stronger than Madeira. And so again, I was very careful because the barrels that we bought, the French cognac barrels, some were 225 liters, some were 300 liters. So that really screwed up my liquid to wood ratios, and they had to really kind of do a lot more extra tasting. But our bourbon stayed in those barrels anywhere from a month before. All I want to do with that secondary barrel is just enhance the flavor. I don't want to overpower it. I just want to enhance it.
Yeah.
So to finish up, right now, you initially what? Okay. So right now, Greg, initially you put out a 15-year barrel strength chicken cock that I remember tasting a long time ago and had my fair share. And but they're right now at the tasting room, and you could go there and get that at the moment. And I mean, the packaging is spectacular on it, but it's not a barrel strength, but you have a 15-year chicken cock. Tell us about that at the Circa 1856 that's there.
Yeah, that's one of the unique things at Circa 1856 in our tasting room. We have some exclusive products that you only buy there. That's it. They're sold. Only place they're sold in the U.S. or in the world is right there at Circa 1856. And one of those is a 15-year-old. You tasted the original 15-year-old we did a couple years ago, which was a barrel strength. It was 114 proof, and it was basically only sold in Kentucky, other than we sold a few online. And it was very exclusive. We did, what was it, 1,372 bottles, I believe, total. Every bottle was sequentially numbered. And again, it was a 15-year-old, 114 proof. This was whiskey. When I was going out doing my treasure hunting, this was one of those days I found a true gem, and it was fantastic. I mean, I tasted the whiskey, smelled the whiskey. I mean, it was phenomenal. And so we're so proud. I think it sold for what, $300 a bottle, something like that. But it sold out like that. It was just crazy.
It was just gone.
What happened was when we bottled that, apparently, I don't know if we didn't order enough, or I think what happened was they didn't ship enough labels. And so we had some of that whiskey left over. So we took the little bit of 15-year-old we had left over, put it in a tank or a tote, whatever it had there. And it's been sitting there until recently. Now, when we started this tasting room, Circa 1856, we had this left over. So we decided to go ahead and bottle it and make it exclusive to Circa 1856. So what happens is when whiskey sits in a tank or in a tote, oxygen is going to get in there. And so the proof will actually reduce. So the product we have there is still extremely good, but it's 103 proof. The product, the 15-year-old we're selling at the Circa 1856. Still delicious. Likewise, we have a barrel pit that's exclusive to Circa 1856. I think it's 124.4 proof, single barrel pick that people can purchase as well.
Would that quite possibly be one of the three that we didn't pick?
No, no. What we picked, actually, the product that we tasted, CT, it's going to be 6 years old here on the 24th of this month. So it was 5 years old when we tasted, and the barrel pick it's going to be bottled as 6-year-old for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. So
that's awesome.
And what, back to my point, that tasted far beyond a 5-year-old bourbon, did it not?
It every bit of 8 to 10. I mean, honestly, the flavors were amazing.
So and that's one of the things I do tastings all over the country, and people say, "Oh, I won't drink a bourbon unless it's at least 8 years old." I said, I'm sorry, but it's all about
Where?
handling the variables you're given to make a great whiskey, and that's I think that's proof that no, it doesn't have to be 8-10 years old.
No, actually, honestly, some of the bourbons, it's all about what went into it beforehand, the barrels. I mean, for God's sakes, when you think about Buffalo Trace, not the whatever, but they basically steam heat their warehouses consistently, taking them up and down, which is a form of what people call rapid aging. But Buffalo Trace never says that they rapid age anything. All they do is heat it. And nobody can rapid age anything because 3 years in the barrel is 3 years in the barrel. What happens in between it, you can do a lot of stuff, but in the end, that's still 3-year-old whiskey. But like you said, if the right stuff happens when it's in that barrel and you put it in there for, the 5 and the 6, the 5, 6, it can taste like an 8 or 9-year-old that just the normal stuff happened, to the bourbon in the barrel. But, that's just how it goes down. But realistically, it really comes down to the person who's doing the tasting, knowing that barrel's ready. Because let's just say it's ready now and it tastes delicious and it tastes like an 8 or 9 at 5 or 6. What's it going to taste at 8 or 9? What happens by that point? It could have too much, of the char or whatever at that point. So as a person who's making whiskey, you got to make sure when the whiskey's peaking, that's when it needs to be bottled and sold, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You had a good point there. Most people think the older it gets, the better it gets, and that's not true. It'll improve, and at some point it starts flattening out, and at some point the wood will taste. I mean, I've tasted some aged bourbons that taste like liquid oak, and some of these older bourbons, it's like the 15-year-old we did.
That are out buying these bottles that they get hung up on that kind of thing instead of does it actually taste good or is actually one better than the other. And I think barrel picks are the place where you really get to see that if you just go in blindly and say, you know what, I'm just trying to pick the best flavor that suits me, may not be the highest proof, may not be the oldest bourbon. It may just be the best tasting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
If you remember, when you and Alan were on one time at the same time, and he was talking about aging in a barrel, and he had a little bit difference of opinion. But I will tell you this: the last barrel pick we did at French Lick, which was in March, I got to taste one of his oldest Lee W. Sinclair's, which is a 4-grain bourbon, and it's at 8 years because he started in 2000 and it might have been a 9-year. It might have been his 9-year. The oldest. It's the first thing he laid down. And I'm telling you, in the barrel that he had it in and whatever, it was starting to pick up big Kentucky caramel flavor. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was like, wow. And I'm just, his stuff is good. And I love his respect for the grain. And he likes to keep a lot of the grain flavor in there. So you pick up a lot more of that fresh bread or butter or baking or some of those fruity notes that are in there by doing that pot still that way. But at the same time, it was starting to mix with that, getting a little bit of age on it. And it was fantastic. So, I mean, it's just, I think every single barrel that you put in has its own personality. And as a person who distills, and it's, when you're distilling like a Jim Beam at that level with those many barrels, it is tricky to be able to watch the stock to make sure the stock doesn't go this way or that way, that they got to have a huge tasting team tasting those barrels. It's skill,
Everybody has their opinion and what's worked for them over the years. I know what's worked best for me through my years in the business and experience and knowledge that I've been able to gain, through every aspect. And so, again, you're right. I think there's some things that Alan was doing with the barrel and that I didn't necessarily agree with, but, to each their own. I mean, he's found it works for him, and that's great.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why it's such a special thing. Everybody can produce a little bit different something or another. I mean, that's what people are doing. And when I first started, there was a lot of small craft distilleries maybe not doing it the way they should, but that's not really, those people had those days are over. Those distilleries, the ones that weren't doing it right, they went by the waysides, and the ones that did it right are, they're the ones that keep going. The industry takes care of itself, right?
Good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Greg. So back to the real quick before Jeff finishes up the Mezzanara cast. Are you able to say what that price point's going to be? Do you know?
I'm not sure what they settled on, CT. I think it's at
Okay.
least $250, maybe a little bit more, but it's 105 proof. I went down here, I don't know, 2 months ago maybe, and worked with Travis Cantrell at Bardstown Bourbon Company. You guys, I know you're aware that most all of our renditions we put out, I actually decide what the bottle proof's going to be. And again, I started barrel proof and I start knocking it down till I get to the point where I feel the alcohol burn subsides and really allows the flavors to overtake the profile. And for this Mizunara finished oak, 105 proof, it's a sweet spot on this one. So, but yeah, it's something special.
And again, that's what makes you special for your brand, is that you're not setting it in at a certain proof. You don't have a company that's saying, hey, Greg, we don't care, it's got to be 90 proof, or it's got to be 80 proof, or it's got to be 101 proof. You are the one deciding that based on the most important factor that there is, which is the way it tastes. Because if it doesn't taste good, people aren't going to buy it. They're not going to drink it. So what's the use? So kudos to you and understand. I mean, obviously you understand it better than anybody, but it's great for the industry to have people like you still in it that aren't just corporate.
Yeah, that's when I started my my consulting company. That's what I said. I want to get out of the corporate rat race and do my own thing. And if whoever I work for doesn't agree with me, that's fine. You don't have to agree, but
Right.
Again, you want a bottle of 80 proof, more power to you. I'll go on to my next customer.
Let's not do that with a $5,000 barrel, though.
No, for sure. That's right. That's exactly right.
All right.
Luca, you got anything?
Yeah, he's been really good tonight. He's been by you, but
not. He's been around here whining the whole time because he's a freaking baby. He seriously can't take it. He's like, Dad, pay attention to me. What are you doing? Right? Tell everybody hi.
Yeah. Yeah, Luca. Yes.
Baby. You're a baby.
Yeah, he seems to mellow out. Is he mellowing finally a little?
Oh.
No.
He doesn't mellow out at all.
Oh.
Dog. He's a great dog, but he's a good dog for me. But man, when anybody else is around, holy crap, he's a pain in the butt because he howls the whole time.
Yeah. All right.
He's a good dog. Look at him chewing my arm. Like he's good. Yeah, he's just chewing on my arm. Can you get down, please?
There you go.
All right.
Oh.
All right, Greg. Thank you for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. Every podcast we do, there's a little bit more to learn. We've kind of evolved them. It's like I really think that doing this, and thank you for doing it 10 times. At one point, I guess when we start doing the TV show, you're going to have to be on now that you have to be the first really produced TV show we do. And we'll just have to do it, whether it's at Circa 1856 or at Bardstown, we'll have to come down and have you just do it and we'll get you on there. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun coming up. So
it's always a pleasure. I love you guys and always have. We've got a great relationship. And again, appreciate everything you guys do, not just for Chicken Cock, for the whole industry. You guys make it work and get people out there that understand and appreciate, what I've set my whole life on. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, and that's why you love it so much. It's not so much just the whiskey, it's the people. because that's what brings people, the whiskey brings people together. And then when people are together, that's where friendships and life happens. And that's one thing that I've always found, that's what's so good about this industry. The people in the industry are completely different than any other industry. The people, now the owners maybe not, but there's certain aspects that are corporate, but overall the industry, the people that make the whiskey and are in charge of making, just whether they're in a big distillery or a little distillery, they seem to just be such down home people. And it's just, life is happening every day, and that's something that we get lost in, and to be able to be a part of that is something special. And we appreciate you letting us be a part of you and your family, with Susan, and just, I know I've met your children. Chris has been spectacular. You know what I mean? It's just like, overall, it's just been great. And that's why we can't get enough of you. So.
And we get to see you in less than a month. Will be.
That's right. I was just going to say, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in September for sure.
It's always great. That's Kentucky Bourbon Festival is special in so many ways, and people that haven't been there, I keep saying, "Oh my God, I don't know why you haven't." And especially for us in Ohio, it's not that far. It's not like you live in California, but it's a must go to, and to meet people like you. Anybody who comes there and meets a Gregg, they're going to be like, "Oh my God, he's so down to earth," and you don't get that in many industries, and for sure, especially an industry as high end as the bourbon industry is. The people are. I always say it's the maturation process, and what it takes to distill and make product is a result of the people that are in it, and they are a result of the maturation process. That literally, it takes so long that they're just chill. They're just easy to get along with. They're not going to get worked up over not meeting a quota for today, because they're not worried about today's quota. They're worried about it 4 to 8 years from now. So that I can appreciate and I love.
Well, it's patience. The people have patience, They're not, most people aren't just spazzing out all over the place. Everybody's, about enjoying themselves and having some, and patience is one thing that's needed. And when people don't have it, the whiskey will force you to have it. So there you go. All right, everybody. Great podcast. Remember www.scotchybourbonboys.com for all things Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Check us out there. And then also check us out on all the major podcast formats, which would be Spotify, iHeart, Apple. And I'm also going to say, I need some of our listeners to go to Apple and give us a good current feedback and stars, because right now where we're at, we've been kind of stagnant. So I'm gonna, for the first person who puts it up there, in the United States, and gives me a good review, I'm gonna send them a Glencairn. So we'll see if that gets somebody to do it. We'll see. All right, everybody. And then also we're on all the major social media, X, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Check us out. And remember, the reason why we're all here is for good bourbon and good friends. It equals good times. And remember, drink responsibly. Make sure that you don't drink and drive. And go out and live your life adventurously. Little Steve-O's going to take us out.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die.
All right. So that's okay. And then real quick, just one of the guys on YouTube said that the bottles look nostalgic. Just real quick, tell them what you had, what the bottles are, because they are fantastic.
Yeah, they're actually replicas of pre-prohibition bottles that chicken cock whiskey used, pre-prohibition and prohibition. The one with the jigger cap, with the chicken cock double oak is in, that was actually produced back during prohibition, but they were pint size back then, and we just blew them up to 750 milliliter. If you look close on the other bottles, they have a honeycomb embossing. And people look at that and say, "Oh, has that got honey in it?" So no, that mimics chicken wire. The double oak bottle, it's got a starburst embossing on it, but again, it has the old classic jigger cap that you can unscrew and use as a shot glass. So that's kind of the history on the bottles.
Yeah, and the one cool thing, the tins that you guys also do, that you've done. The one thing I was impressed was to see the original tin and then see the tins that you produced. It's pretty impressive, actually. Right?
Yeah, they're so similar.
So did you guys get to see the original tin? It's on display down at Circa 1856.
Yeah, you
it's
did.
Got the old key, just like it opened up an old can of tuna or whatever. It had the old key that you tear off the top and put it in the tab and turn it to open up the top. That was the original tin. Today we got the flip top, and we end up going to the old one. The Mizunara would be the fourth rendition in a tin, and it's in the oval shape like the Red State was. They're more durable, stronger tins.
So the wood box for the 15. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I have no idea. It's the first time I saw that when they showed me. I guess they're trying to spruce it up a little bit, being a exclusive product coming out of Circa 1856.
Well, anything that is quite that expensive, there's reasons for
the packaging. Yeah,
right. I mean, when that's one thing. You're going to buy a really good whiskey, and you get a great bottle, and you get a tin or whatever. That does enhance the packaging, but that's not like it's cheap. It's not.
No, that stuff. It's quite an additional add-on. Yeah.
But I mean, it goes with the brand. I mean, I just think the bottles are just so spectacular. So,
thank you. I agree. I think we don't have an elaborate packaging department. There's a lady that does all of our packaging design as far as the labels and I think she does a fantastic job. But so yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to thank everybody who joined us on Facebook. There was Walker was on, Jamie was on, all the normal.
Ross was on from 1792.
Okay. And then sipping from one
Casey
of the
Pritchard was on.
Walker was having a reserve cask from one of probably from the New Orleans Bourbon Festival, but what definitely Walker has he's got a lot of the chicken cock, and he says, "Cheers, Greg. It was good to see you tonight."
Yeah, it was great meeting Walker as well earlier this year. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fit in pretty well with the. Well, when you come on, you usually see him in the chats, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I'll flip us off Facebook. Good night, everybody on Facebook. All right. Here we go. We're off Facebook. I'll finish up YouTube real quick. All right. Thanks, everybody on YouTube, joining us for this special Monday podcast. And